Good morning. Welcome to the FilmStance Morning Edition. I'm Caleb Allen here with my good buddy CK Hicks.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning indeed. We just had a discussion about whether or not it truly was a good morning.
I think it is. I think anytime you can wake up and talk about movies, you're doing all right. You know, we're not like running from wild animals or like fighting a war or like
I
so.
just was though right before I woke up, so
So for those
maybe
of
a
you who
bit.
don't know, Caleb has twins
Yeah,
and they have an early start to each day.
quite earlier than my own definition of what an early start should be. But anyways, so to get us kicked off here, I heard something. Everywhere I look, it's some month. It's some weird marketing month. They're always like,
Gotcha.
this is such and such month, so we're celebrating by giving you 50% off of our whatever. Well, so I did a little research. Basically, anytime you want to have a month that's themed, you can, because somebody's got some weird calendar. So this month is actually a little bit more official because it's officially movie watching month, but
Hmm.
it's more official because Abraham Lincoln was the one that put it in place, and then he said, make sure you don't go to theaters.
Uh, that took me a minute. Took me took me
Hey,
just a
it's a little
minute, about a
it's a little
minute longer than I would have liked, but
early.
so it's no longer a good
Early for
morning
CK
actually.
two. Yeah, early for CK2.
Yeah, but it is fun how there was a post by Gary Vaynerchuk that did a really good job of talking about, I don't know, it wasn't Mother's Day, it was something right before Mother's Day, and he was saying, it used to be that you could have just a sale, or it used to be that you could just have Mother's Day without having sales, and now every single person in the world jumps on that bandwagon and has like the Mother's Day sale and the this day sale, and he said, well, the problem is it gets so oversaturated because you have all these people competing and everything, and it's no longer special. It's like we know from The Incredibles, everybody's special and nobody is, and so it has been fun. That's hilarious that you can
Yeah,
kind of
so
just do
people
that.
have to invent holidays now to sell stuff.
Yeah, that's just
Crazy.
silly. So speaking of this is in the business we call this a segue. This is a speaking of people who are like inventing roles and things. Um, Have you seen the amount of traction? This is what they call a rhetorical question too. Uh, all this industry lingo coming at you today. Have you seen the role that Chris Pratt is inventing for himself?
I mean, I've seen him a lot. To me, he's kind of like a good-looking Owen Wilson.
That's
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 fair.
not funny.
So he is getting a ton of traction in the movie industry right now. Obviously, last year we had him in the Lego Movie and Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
and then he's just about to his film Jurassic World. I shouldn't say his film, but the film that he stars in, Jurassic World, comes out very very soon, and that's on our to see list. So we'll be giving you reviews of that. But there's talks of him now for Ghostbusters, and then there was a Photoshop going around, a fan made thing of him as Indiana Jones, which we know there is a fourth one in the works, or actually a fifth one in the works. And I guess Steven Spielberg even said he looks pretty good as Indiana Jones, and so um, I'm amazed that this guy has like I'm not sure what exactly he got his start with, but I know he did a lot of work on Parks and Rec. I'm kind of trying to see where he got traction at the beginning. It looks like just little stuff, and then all of a sudden, I guess he was in Moneyball, and then all of a sudden, man, he's just in everything, just everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because he's everywhere, but then at the same time now like you say, he's pushing himself into like remaking iconic roles, which is just really interesting, especially the Indiana Jones thing. I learned something interesting today, and I'm not making this one up. Okay, I actually learned something this past week. Tom Selleck was the original cast for Indiana Jones before Harrison Ford, and he
Whoa.
couldn't do it because of Magnum PI. So I'm thinking like that would have changed everything as far as like, and there's a couple others that I read about too that I'll tell you about some other time, but it would have changed everything about how that was,
Oh yeah,
how that was
definitely.
perceived.
I like
It's a
him much
totally
more as a
different character
Magnum.
type. Yeah, I mean he's definitely like plays the tough cop a lot better than like Harrison Ford can pull off that slightly nerdy but adventuresome
Well, and
good guy.
there's a style to that that requires it's kind of like half gunslinger, half, and that's what worries me about hearing that Chris Pratt, even rumored by fans, would be a favorite
Mhm.
for the Indiana Jones role because of seeing how that has changed. You know, we almost saw the buck being passed to Shia LaBeouf in the fourth one, and it's just not. It just doesn't have that vibe to it of that swagger kind of, you know, and that I think is part of what makes Indiana Jones great, much like Han Solo, and you could say he was typecast, but it works, you know. And you see Mal from Serenity, these kinds of like half cowboy, half leader, half adventurer type person. Uh, they all kind of have that swagger and that kind of just laid back. And I haven't seen Chris Pratt pull that off yet, so that's kind of an interesting one. Although
Yeah.
I just looked at his profile on IMDb, and he is slated for the Magnificent Seven remake in 2017. So you talk about remaking classics.
Yeah.
This is a film from 1960 that is like uber famous and you know very pivotal in a lot of this type of film and its genre. And I didn't even know they were remaking it. So that I think you're onto something about him kind of
It's
filling those
very
roles.
it's very possible. You know, we can come down a little hard sometimes on actors. I agree with you that this particular actor, I don't feel like I've seen enough from him to feel like he warrants getting these iconic roles. However, I think sometimes we can be a little bit harder on people just because we have a deeper appreciation for the classics and then for the people who acted them. I just watched a special on Jimmy Stewart the other day or last night. The other day, man, it's been a long week. Um, anyways, it was a really good Jimmy Stewart special about how he's just kind of been this solid kind of acting personality throughout a whole bunch of different roles. Like it wasn't always he kind of gets like this bad rap for being typecast a lot. Like this is the only thing Jimmy Stewart can do, but they were showing how he was that in a whole bunch of different roles.
Hmm.
And so he brought his own little homespun type acting to a role where you wouldn't normally expect to see that. So it wasn't necessarily typecast. It's just that he was able to infuse something different into a role. And it was doing a really good job of showing how he had accomplished some really good stuff over the years. And so I'd be like, if somebody wanted to redo like It's a Wonderful Life or something, we'd come down so hard on whoever that was. I
Yeah.
don't care who it is. Just because you can't replace those kinds of performances.
Hmm.
You just can't.
Yeah,
So
you're right. That's it's tough to find the balance between the historical record of something and you know the ability to redo it in a way that actually improves what people knew. And then of course there's that you know kind of that phrase like there's every day there's somebody born who hasn't seen X, and it's kind of a fun discussion to figure out like was the original good enough to represent the idea behind that and even the worldview behind that. You know that's what Caleb, you've done some stuff on kind of historical comparisons between Disney films, and there's some really interesting contrasts that get made, and the act of sort of rewriting history in those ways is pretty fascinating to both of us, I think.
yeah, and you had an interesting point on that regarding a recent movie about rewriting history.
Yeah, actually, so I was at a ham radio convention in Dayton, Ohio last weekend, and they
Tasty.
it is it's a good time. And so I mean my father and grandfather were ham radio operators, and it's been a fun piece of our history. And But when I was there, they were giving a presentation on the clandestine radio operations in World War II, which, you know, if you're not excited by that title, I can't help you because it's just really cool stuff. But it was neat because they were going through kind of the accounts and all of this trials and everything everybody went through in World War II, where you know if you were in Germany and you were caught transmitting, you were just shot. And then there were Germans over in America who were trying to you know do like counter surveillance and then spy back on them and transmit and everything. And so all of this is being done in World War II era before we have internet and cell phones and really nice radios. And so they're building them into little you know handmade or household items, and like putting a radio into an iron and then hiding it so that it doesn't see inspection and stuff. Really interesting stuff. But they brought up a very recent film surrounding the events closing World War II, which was Alan Turing and the Imitation Game. And they said that Turing, of course, contributed, and in what we see in the film, heavily contributed to solving the Enigma encryption protocol that the Germans were using. And this is where it gets interesting, because the Enigma protocol was something that was written by the Germans to, encrypt all their messages, and we were having a lot of trouble with it. And so was Britain. And so, also, as we found out, was Poland. Now, Poland had, according to this person who worked for the Enigma Museum, this is what he does. He said that until about 1999, nobody even knew Poland's involvement in all of that. They were just as influential. He said maybe even more so definitely more so than the Americans, but maybe even more so than Britain. But in the Imitation Game, the only story, the side of the story we hear is from Turing's perspective in his home country, and it doesn't even mention Poland, because again, until 1999, nobody even knew that Poland had involvement in this stuff. So when we are seeing a film that has kind of a historical context, or it's couched in history, whether it be Lincoln movies or whatever, like retelling old movies, a lot of times it's easy to forget that there is actual history tied to some of these things, and that you may not be getting the full story. And you may actually be getting a partial history that is rendered specifically to, again, give a message. We talk about this all the time, that the filmmaker is trying to teach you something through his film, and it may not be an accurate view of history. So when I told that to some guys from work who had seen the film, they were just like, really? That Poland? And they're like, Poland wasn't in the movie at all. I said, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, that's really good, especially because you're so right about how if something doesn't fit into the story that a particular storyteller wants to tell, then they will just leave it out. And I would be guilty of the same thing. For instance, if I wanted to tell a story and this certain bit of historical something that might be relevant but also is not well known, and it doesn't really quite fit with my story, I might be guilty of leaving it out also. But then you've got a whole deeper level to this with the stuff like the Noah and the Exodus movies, and the Paul movie that might be coming out with Hugh Jackman and Matt Damon and all of that kind of stuff, where you've got these other types of stories that are even a little bit more significant to people like us, that they're rewriting the history also to suit their purposes. Because if it all comes right down to it, whether or not Hollywood is trying to intentionally infuse an agenda into a movie by changing the story, they definitely have one that bleeds over into their story. Everybody has an agenda. We have an agenda with what we're doing right now, and even if we're not intentionally putting it into this morning show, it's coming through just because it's what we believe. It's how we think about the world. And so whoever made the Imitation Game, I'm sorry I haven't done the research to find out who made it, whoever made that, their worldview is coming out in that story naturally. And so if their worldview didn't involve Poland, or if they didn't do the research to find out about Poland, or any of those things, then it's completely understandable, because that didn't fit their view of the world.
Yeah, and so again, just keep an eye open as you're watching films. That's something that we say in our regular stream of podcasts is watch with both eyes open, and don't just go see a film and turn off or think that you're being handed the most accurate representation of something, even if you realize that that's a fact. Still engage it. Don't just realize it and say this may or may not be true, I'll just enjoy it. Like, actually, make sure that you invest in it, and that you're getting something out of it more than just the entertainment value. I mean, I think one of the biggest reasons that I have trouble being engaged by a lot of the stuff that Chris Pratt has been in is they're fun, but there a lot of times there's either a really poor worldview, or that they, and I hate to generalize like this, but or they're just not much beyond the entertainment value. And so it's kind of a tough balance between, yes, you can go see a movie and kind of leap out of or escape, a lot of the stuff that you do on a daily basis, but it shouldn't be an escape where you then bring pieces of it back and plant it in your world. You know, it's like, I mean, Tomorrowland comes out this week, and there's kind of that dual world mentality of where you're like, you phase into this one and then you phase back into this one, sort of. And that's not how we can do things with films. Like, there is one real world, and then there are these fake worlds. And there may be truths that pertain to both, but that's because they got to be based on something that we understand. And so we're really big on that. And I hope that you keep an eye out for it, especially as you're going to see some of these more fantastical films. But it, you know, it does look like a pretty good summer for movies. There's several coming out that I think are going to do pretty well.
Yeah, contrasted to last summer when I didn't really feel like there was anything good at all.
Well, we will be here to help you take care of it and help you cover it. So that's what we're here for.
Talking to them or me?
I don't know. I mean, we, you know, I guess.
You and the mouse in your pocket?
Something, yeah.
Hi, Fred. I like Fred. He's cute. He's a little white mouse. He's a racist mouse.
All right. That's all we've got for this morning. Check out our YouTube channel and take a look at filmstance.com if you need anything. Other than that, we will catch you. I don't know. I guess we're trying to do this every week. But
Thursdays in the morning.
Thursdays at 8 a.m. We wake up talking about movies.
It's a morning show. It'd be stupid if we did it in the evening.
Fair enough. So Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. Right here on the YouTube channel. And we'd appreciate if you hit subscribe, because that would help us a lot. And
subscribe is there. It might be there.
I don't know, just pointing down, you know, somewhere. Everybody knows YouTube. So that's what we'll be doing. And we'll come at you later. And
subscribe button right here. Right there.
I wanted to make sure it lingered on that shot for a moment, so we actually have a chance to do that. If you could click Caleb's nose, we'll be good to go. So
the Poltergeist coming out soon. I think it's got clowns in it. Maybe a little red nose right here. And like, subscribe.
Oh my gosh!
Subscribe right now, or you'll be inhabited.